Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin today with a very simple idea, simple enough to miss, powerful enough to change the course of your entire life. And here it is. Your life does not change because of one big moment. It changes because of a series of small, consistent moments practiced daily. Most people are out there waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for inspiration, waiting for the perfect year, the perfect month, the perfect day. But let me tell you, if you wait for perfection, you'll be waiting when the parade passes by. What truly determines your future is not what you do once in a while. It's what you do every single day. Now, here in 2025, we live in a world of speed, faster technology, faster answers, faster distractions. Everything is coming at you like a fire hose. But I can promise you this, while the world changes its gadgets, the principles of success have not changed at all. The same ideas that worked 50 years ago still work today. And one of the greatest ideas I ever learned was the power of a daily routine. Not a routine for punishment, not a routine for pressure, but a routine that builds your future 1 hour at a time. You see, when you give 1 hour a day to your personal development, you're not just filling a schedule, you're building a person. You're shaping character. You're refining thinking. You're designing a destiny. And if you'll stay with me today, I want to show you a routine so simple you might doubt its power, and yet so effective you'll wonder why you didn't start it sooner. Because here's the truth. You don't have to change your entire life in one day, but you can change the direction of your life in 1 hour. So today, let's explore this idea together. Let's look at how 1 hour divided wisely, practiced faithfully, can become the foundation for every achievement you seek. And once you understand it, once you decide to live it, you'll never again ask, will things change for me? Instead, you'll say, I'm changing for them. And that, my friends, is where the true power begins. Now, let's talk about one of the great misunderstandings of personal development. People often say, Jim, I just need more motivation. But let me tell you something important. Motivation is a spark, but consistency is the fire. Motivation feels good. Oh, it feels wonderful. It moves your emotions. It stirs up your hopes, but it doesn't last. You can wake up inspired at 7 a.m., and by noon, the world has given you 10 reasons to forget what you were inspired about. Motivation is a moment. Consistency is a decision. Most people think their problem is lack of motivation. It's not. Their real problem is that they haven't made the kind of decision that demands consistency. When you make a real decision, everything changes. A real decision says, I'm going to do this whether I feel like it or not. Because let me assure you, feelings are unreliable partners. Some days you feel strong, some days you don't. Some days you feel optimistic, some days you drag your feet. But discipline doesn't ask the mood, it asks the mission. Consistency works differently. Consistency says, I keep the promise, I keep the routine, I keep the hour. And when you keep the hour, something extraordinary begins to happen. You start to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, you start to move differently, think differently, live differently. You see, self-trust is the real engine of transformation. Now, here's what I discovered. People fail not because they set the wrong goals, but because they fail to set the right rhythm. And rhythm is built by repetition, not inspiration. The world is filled with people who were motivated last week but didn't do anything today. And the world is changed by people who simply showed up even on the days they didn't feel like it. When you become consistent, you gain an advantage. Not because you're smarter, not because you're more talented, but because consistency compounds. Small steps taken daily become big steps taken annually. A little progress every day becomes a lot of progress over time. Motivation might get you started, but consistency keeps you in the game long enough to win. So if there's one shift I want you to make today, it's this. Stop asking for more motivation. Start asking for more structure. Because structure creates rhythm, and rhythm creates results. And that's why, in the next part of our lesson, we're going to talk about something that affects all of us. The modern trap that keeps most people from becoming the person they're capable of. Now let's move to a problem that almost everyone in this modern age is facing, and many don't even realize it. You know, years ago, people used to be busy because they were building something, building a business, building a family, building a farm, building a future. Today, most people are busy because they're distracted. And here's the strangest thing. We live in a time with more tools than ever before, yet fewer people feel in control of their lives. I call this the great modern trap. People are too busy to ever become better. Let me explain. You wake up in the morning, and before your feet hit the floor, your phone has already given you 20 reasons to forget your priorities. Messages, notifications, updates, alerts, every one of them asking for immediate attention but offering no long-term return. The world has become very loud, and in all that noise, it's easy to lose your direction. You see, it used to be that distraction knocked on the door. Today, distraction lives inside your pocket. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your entire day reacting to messages, reacting to problems, reacting to other people's emergencies. And by the time the day ends, you're exhausted, but you didn't grow. Busy, but not better. Active, but not advancing. Let me give you a principle that changed everything for me. A day spent in reaction is a day surrendered to someone else's priorities. Most people don't design their life, they defend their schedule. They don't plan the day, they survive it. They put out fires they didn't start and fight battles that aren't even theirs. And as the years pass, they wonder why they feel stuck, why things aren't changing, why progress feels slow. It's because improvement requires intention, and intention needs time, and time will never appear. You must reserve it. Modern life has convinced many people that they don't have time. But let me tell you, it's not a time problem, it's a priority problem. Everybody has the same 24 hours. The difference is not the hours, it's the arrangement. The truth is, if you don't claim at least a part of your day for your own growth, the world will claim all of it for its own agenda. That's why we need a daily routine, a simple, structured hour that belongs to you, guarded by you, invested by you. Because if you don't protect your hour, the world will happily steal it. And that is exactly why the next principle I want to introduce is so important. It's the foundation behind the entire routine, the idea that gives 1 hour the power to transform your future. Now, let's move to one of the most important ideas of this entire lesson, an idea so simple that most people never stop long enough to realize how powerful it is. I call it the law of the hour. And here's how it works. 1 hour a day of intentional improvement is worth more than a full week of scattered effort. You see, most people overestimate what they can do in a single burst of motivation and underestimate what they can do through daily discipline. But the hour, your hour, is where consistency becomes progress, and progress becomes transformation. Let me give you the mathematics of it. 1 hour a day is 365 hours a year. That's over 9 full work weeks. Now imagine spending 9 weeks every year studying, thinking, planning, practicing, reading, improving. 9 weeks focused entirely on your personal growth. Most people don't get 9 hours. But you, if you choose, can build 9 weeks of personal development every year simply by honoring 1 hour a day. That is the power of the law of the hour. But the real magic isn't just in the accumulation of hours. The real magic is in what the hour builds inside of you. Because the hour isn't just time, it's identity. When you keep that hour, you begin to see yourself differently. You begin to say, I am someone who improves. I am someone who invests. I am someone who follows through. And once you believe that about yourself, you move through the world with a different posture. You see, the hour shapes your character long before it shapes your circumstances. Now, here's what's interesting. Most people think change begins with action. It doesn't. Change begins with intention. But intention without structure fades. Intention without rhythm decays. Intention without a protected hour becomes just another good idea that never lived long enough to become a result. The law of the hour gives intention a home. It turns a desire into a discipline. And once a desire becomes a discipline, it becomes a destiny. Because here's the truth. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You rise to the level of your systems. And the hour is your system. Now, you might ask, Jim, what do I put in this hour? How do I divide it? How do I make the most of it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about next. Because this hour is not random. It's not chaotic. It's not a guessing game. It follows a simple structure, a structure built on 4 pillars that nourish the mind, strengthen the spirit, upgrade your skills, and move your life forward one step at a time. We'll start with the first pillar, one of the most life-changing habits you can ever adopt. Now let's talk about the first pillar of your hour one that has shaped leaders, thinkers, and achievers for centuries. 15 minutes of reading. You know, when I was a young man, someone told me, Jim, reading is the shortcut to a better life. And I didn't believe it at first. I thought the shortcut was luck. I thought the shortcut was talent. I thought the shortcut was opportunity. But I soon discovered that opportunity comes to those who are prepared, and reading prepares you like nothing else. Let me give you a principle worth remembering. Books are the shelves where wisdom waits for you. And every minute you spend reading is a minute spent in good company. Now, some people say, Jim, I don't have time to read. But that's not true. They don't have the discipline to read. And the beauty of this routine is that you don't need an hour or half an hour. You just need 15 minutes, 15 quiet, focused minutes where you nourish your mind. 15 minutes a day may not seem like much, but let me give you the numbers. 15 minutes a day is over 90 hours a year. And 90 hours of reading can change your thinking, your habits, your confidence, your income, and your whole direction. 90 hours can turn ignorance into understanding, confusion into clarity, and hesitation into action. The key is to read with intention, not just scrolling, not just consuming noise, not just reading because someone told you to, but reading because you want to become the kind of person who thinks better, chooses better, and lives better. What should you read? Read books on mindset because your thoughts build your future. Read books on money because money doesn't respond to wishes, it responds to knowledge. Read books on leadership, communication, discipline, relationships. Every page becomes a tool you can use to build your life. And let me tell you something important. Your library will change your life long before your life changes your library. Collect books. Study them. Highlight them. Revisit them. Let them become old friends who walk with you as you grow. Now, here's what's fascinating. Reading is not just about learning something new. It's also about remembering what you already know but forgot to apply. Reading keeps your philosophy strong. And your philosophy, your personal philosophy, is your guidance system. Miss a meal if you have to, but don't miss your reading. 15 minutes a day. Every day. Let that be the first investment of your hour. And once we've fed the mind, we move to the next step, equally important, but often neglected. The part where you don't just take in information, you process it. Now that we've talked about feeding the mind, let's talk about something equally important. Giving the mind space to speak back. And that brings us to the second pillar of your hour, 15 minutes of reflection. You know, we live in a world where people are drowning in information but starving for wisdom. They read, they scroll, they listen, they consume, but they rarely stop long enough to think. Thinking has almost become a lost art, but not for those who want to rise, not for those who want to design their life with intention. If reading is the intake, reflection is the digestion. And without it, your mind gets full, but your life stays empty. Let me give you one of the greatest lessons I ever learned. Don't just live the day, get the day's worth out of it. How do you do that? You sit down with a notebook or a journal or even a blank page and you ask yourself a few honest questions. What did I learn today? What did I struggle with? What am I avoiding? What am I improving? What deserves my attention tomorrow? You see, reflection turns experience into insight. Without reflection, life goes by unnoticed. With reflection, life becomes a classroom and every day becomes a lesson. Most people repeat the same day over and over because they never take the time to discover what the day was trying to teach them. And if you're not careful, you can live 1 year 50 times instead of 50 years once. But 15 minutes of reflection breaks that pattern. It slows you down long enough to hear your own thoughts. It helps you catch your excuses, refine your goals, strengthen your habits, and correct your course. Reflection is where you confront your patterns before they become your limitations. Now, here's something important. Reflection is not guilt. Reflection is not self-criticism. Reflection is awareness. Awareness is the starting point of change. You might be surprised how much clarity 15 minutes can bring. Ideas that were foggy become sharp. Problems that felt heavy become solvable. Distractions lose their power. Priorities become obvious. And slowly, you begin to understand why you think the way you think and why you act the way you act. Jim Rohn used to say, "A life unexamined is a life left to chance." So don't leave your life to chance. Examine it, take 15 minutes a day, and listen to yourself. You may find the answers you've been searching for have been waiting inside you all along. Now, once you've fed your mind and reflected on your path, the next step in your hour is where the rubber meets the road, where thinking becomes progress, and progress becomes momentum. Now let's move to the third pillar of your hour, 15 minutes of intentional work. This is where your ideas begin to take shape. This is where your plans start turning into progress. And most importantly, this is where you start building a future instead of just thinking about one. 15 minutes might not seem like much, but let me tell you something extraordinary. 15 minutes of focused effort is worth more than 2 hours of wandering effort. When you give yourself 15 minutes of pure intention, no distractions, no interruptions, you'll accomplish more than most people do in an entire afternoon of scattered energy. Now, what do I mean by intentional work? I mean choosing one task, just one, that moves your life forward, not busy work, not the easy work, not something to help you feel productive. I'm talking about the kind of work that builds your future brick by brick. Maybe it's writing one page of the book you've been talking about. Maybe it's creating one piece of content for your business. Maybe it's one sales call, one proposal, one lesson, one workout, one financial decision. Maybe it's 15 minutes of building a new skill that deepens your career or expands your opportunities. The point isn't what you choose. The point is that you choose with intention. Here's a principle worth putting on your wall. Most people aren't behind because they lack talent. They're behind because they lack direction. Intentional work gives you direction. It says, for these 15 minutes, I'm not reacting, I'm creating. I'm not responding, I'm advancing. I'm not living by accident, I'm living by design. Over the course of a year, 15 minutes a day becomes 90 hours of focused creation, and 90 hours of the right work can change the trajectory of your life. Imagine spending 90 hours building a business, or improving your health, or rewriting your financial future, or crafting a skill that makes you more valuable in the marketplace. Some people wait years for life to change, but life would begin to change for them if they would change how they invest 15 minutes. Let me tell you something. The difference between average and exceptional rarely shows up in the big hours. It shows up in the small minutes. The average person says, it's only 15 minutes. The exceptional person says, it's 15 minutes, I'd better use it. So choose your work wisely. Choose it daily. And choose it with purpose. Now, after you've spent 15 minutes feeding your mind, 15 minutes shaping your thoughts, and 15 minutes moving your life forward, there's one more pillar left, one that strengthens your abilities and prepares you for the opportunities coming your way. Now let's move to the fourth and final pillar of your hour, 15 minutes of skill upgrade. And I want you to listen closely here, because this one pillar can multiply your value faster than almost anything else you do. You see, in the marketplace, whether you're an employee, an entrepreneur, a creator, or a student, your income, your influence, your opportunities, they don't respond to your wishes. They respond to your skills. Skills are the currency of the modern world. And in 2025, things change so quickly that yesterday's knowledge becomes outdated faster than ever before. But here's the good news. While change is fast, skill building is forever. Jim Rohn used to say, to earn more, you must become more. Well, becoming more requires improving what you can do. Now what do you work on in these 15 minutes? Whatever increases your value, whatever sharpens your edge, whatever makes you more capable, more confident, and more competitive in the marketplace. Maybe you spend these 15 minutes improving your communication because better communication opens doors. Maybe you learn a new technology because the world is being built by those who understand the tools. Maybe you improve your writing, your selling, your leadership, your teaching, your creativity. Maybe you refine a craft, drill a technique, or study a pattern in your industry. Just 15 minutes. Not to master the skill today, but to master yourself over time. Let me give you a powerful principle. 15 minutes of skill building a day becomes 90 hours a year, and 90 hours creates expertise where there was once only interest. That's how ordinary people become extraordinary contributors. That's how average performers become valued assets. That's how someone with no special advantage gains a permanent advantage. If you spend 15 minutes learning every day, you won't be the same person next year because you won't have the same abilities. And life responds to abilities. Think about it. If you get just a little bit better at communication, you become more persuasive. If you get just a little bit better at leadership, you gain more trust. If you get just a little bit better at creativity, you produce more solutions. If you get just a little bit better at technology, you become indispensable. And all of that, every bit of it, was built 15 minutes at a time. This is how you build a life that grows, a career that expands, and a future that continues to open. Not by dramatic leaps, but by subtle improvements. Not by waiting for the perfect opportunity, but by preparing for the opportunity before it arrives. And once you complete all 4 pillars, reading, reflection, intentional work, and skill upgrade, you now have something most people never develop. A professional hour, a personal hour, a life-building hour, an hour that belongs to your future, protected from the noise of the world. From here, the question becomes, how do you make this hour stick? How do you turn it from a good idea into a fixed part of your life? That's where we go next. Now that we've covered the 4 pillars of your hour, I want to talk about something just as important as the pillars themselves, the ritual. Because a good plan will give you direction, but a good ritual will give you consistency. And without consistency, even the best plan becomes nothing more than a hopeful idea. You see, most people don't struggle because they lack intelligence or talent. They struggle because they never turn their intentions into a rhythm. And life improves when you find a rhythm you can rely on, a rhythm that works even on the days when you don't feel like working, a rhythm that keeps your priorities at the front of the line instead of buried behind endless distractions. So how do you make the hour stick? First, you create what I call a consistency corner. Not a big room, not a fancy office, just a simple space that reminds you, this is where I grow. It could be a small desk, a chair, a notebook, a lamp, a shelf with a few books. The point is not decoration. The point is identity. When you sit there, you know why you're there. And the mind loves association. If your mind knows that corner is for growth, then every time you sit down, it prepares itself to improve. Second, you attach the hour to something immovable. Don't let it float in your day like a loose balloon. Attach it to a fixed moment. Maybe it's the first hour after waking, before the world asks anything of you. Maybe it's the hour right before bed, when the noise is quieted. Maybe it's during lunch, or right after work. The timing doesn't matter as much as the consistency. What matters is that the hour becomes expected, like brushing your teeth, or locking your door, or putting on your shoes. Routine creates reliability. Third, you prepare the night before. If you wait until morning to decide what your hour will look like, the world will make that decision for you. So the night before, set out your book, open your journal to a blank page, choose your one intentional task, decide your 15-minute skill. When you begin the hour, don't think just start. Preparation removes negotiation. Negotiation kills consistency. Fourth, keep the ritual simple. If you make it complicated, you won't keep it. If you make it rigid, you won't enjoy it. If you make it heavy, you won't return to it. The hour should feel like a gift, not a burden. A privilege, not pressure. A moment that says, this time belongs to me, and I'm going to use it to build something valuable. And finally, make a promise to yourself. I don't negotiate with the hour. You can adjust the time, but not the commitment. You can change the location, but not the intention. You can rearrange the day, but you must protect the hour. Because here's the truth. Discipline is easier when the decision is already made. If you wake up every day deciding whether to do your hour, you'll lose half the battle. But if the hour is a non-negotiable part of your identity, you won't have to decide. You'll simply follow through. And once the hour becomes a habit, something wonderful begins to happen. You don't just get through your days anymore. You start to design them. You don't just respond to life. You begin to direct it. And that is the foundation of what we'll talk about next. How to measure your progress so the hour becomes even more powerful over time. Now, once you've built a daily hour, the next question is this. How do you know it's working? Because here's something important. Progress is not always loud. Growth does not always announce itself. In fact, some of the greatest changes in your life happen quietly underneath the surface long before the results become visible. And if you're not careful, you might mistake silence for failure. This is why we need the weekly review. The weekly review is your chance to stop, take a breath, and measure the invisible progress that's been forming day by day. It's a chance to gather the small victories, the subtle improvements, the shifts in thinking that you may have overlooked while you were busy with life. Without this review, you might talk yourself out of your own success before it ever arrives. Jim Rohn used to say, "Don't let a week go by without checking the scoreboard. Because if you don't measure your progress, you won't protect it." So how do you conduct a weekly review? It's simple, not easy, but simple. First, find a quiet moment at the end of the week. Sit down with your notebook, the same one you use for reflection, and ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What improved this week? Look for anything big or small. Maybe you read 3 chapters. Maybe you wrote down 1 new idea. Maybe you kept your promise 5 out of 7 days. Maybe your thinking felt clearer. Maybe you felt more in control of your time. Every improvement counts. And when you see it on paper, the mind says, we're moving. 2. Where did I fall short? Now, this is not about guilt. This is not about shame. This is about accuracy. If you missed the hour, note why. If you procrastinated, note how. If you drifted, note when. Because you cannot correct what you refuse to confront. Awareness creates adjustments. Adjustments create improvement. 3. What 1 thing do I need to improve next week? Not 5 things. Not 10 things. 1, maybe you want to wake up 15 minutes earlier. Maybe you want to reduce phone distractions. Maybe you want to choose a clearer task for your intentional work. Maybe you want to study a more challenging skill. 1 improvement each week becomes 52 improvements a year. That kind of momentum makes the extraordinary possible. Now here's the real magic of the weekly review. It builds self-trust. Every time you see your progress written down, you say to yourself, I'm doing it. I'm actually doing it. And that belief is priceless. When a person believes in themselves, the whole world begins to respond differently. Most people abandon their goals not because they failed, but because they never measured the ways they were actually succeeding. The weekly review prevents that. It keeps you encouraged, corrected, aligned, and accountable. It keeps your hour purposeful instead of mechanical. It keeps your growth intentional instead of accidental. And once you learn to measure each week, there's a natural next step, the monthly reset. This is where you begin not only to measure your progress, but to redesign your next chapter. Now that we've covered how to measure your progress each week, let's take an even bigger step, the monthly reset. If the weekly review keeps you aligned, the monthly reset keeps you advancing. One looks at the days you lived, the other looks at the life you're building. Jim Rohn used to say, don't start the month until you've finished it on paper. And that phrase changed everything for me, because most people wander into a new month with no strategy, no clarity, no direction. They hope the next month treats them better than the last. But hope is not a strategy. Hope must be partnered with design. The monthly reset is your moment to sit down and say, where am I going? It's your personal board meeting. Your opportunity to recenter your mission. Here's how it works. First, review the entire month. Open your notebook and walk through your weekly reviews. Look for patterns, both good and bad. Where were you consistent? Where did you drift? What skills did you improve? What tasks actually moved your life forward? If a month passes with no insight, improvement becomes accidental. But if every month ends with understanding, improvement becomes inevitable. Second, choose what you're continuing. Success isn't only about adding, it's also about repeating. What worked this month? What habits helped you grow? What routines brought clarity? These must continue. Success loves repetition. Third, choose what you're eliminating. Some habits drain your energy. Some tasks waste your time. Some patterns pull you off course. If you don't eliminate what weakens your hour, your hour will eventually collapse under the weight of old behaviors. And fourth, choose one new focus for the next month. Maybe a new book, maybe a new skill, maybe a new project, maybe a new financial discipline. Just one thing, simple, clear, measurable. 12 months, 12 focal points. That's how you create a year of transformation. A month designed on paper becomes a month lived with purpose. And once you begin designing your months, something powerful happens. Your life stops running you. You start running it. Now let's talk about something truly extraordinary, the compounding effect. You see, the beauty of small disciplines is that they don't stay small. 1 hour a day seems insignificant in the moment, but profoundly significant over time. Let me give you the truth. Nothing compounds faster than consistency. 1 day of reading changes very little, but a year of reading can change your thinking. 1 day of reflection feels quiet, but a year of reflection gives you wisdom. 1 day of intentional work produces a small result, but a year of intentional work builds a business, a body, a craft, a future. 1 day of upgrading your skill feels slow, but a year makes you more valuable than most people in your field. Consistency is the great multiplier. It turns minutes into mastery. It turns small efforts into large transformations. It turns ordinary people into exceptional contributors. Here's the principle. Success doesn't respond to intensity. It responds to consistency. A burst of effort creates excitement, but daily effort creates excellence. And excellence is what the world rewards financially, professionally, relationally, spiritually. Over time, your habits reshape your identity reshapes your decisions, and your decisions reshape your destiny. That's the real magic of compounding. It changes not just your results, but the person achieving them. Now, all of this leads to something deeper, an identity shift. The hour is not just about what you do, it's about who you become. Because if you want to change your life, you must first change the story you tell yourself about who you are. Most people say, I'm inconsistent. I'm easily distracted. I'm not disciplined. I never finish. And life listens to that story. But when you complete your hour day after day, without fanfare, without applause, something begins to change inside you. You start saying things like, I keep my promises. I show up for myself. I can rely on me. I'm becoming the person I once hoped to be. This is the identity shift. And once it happens, discipline becomes natural instead of forced. Consistency becomes automatic instead of exhausting. Effort becomes a choice instead of a struggle. The hour builds habits. The habits build identity. The identity builds destiny. And destiny is simply the long-term expression of who you've been becoming every day. Let's talk about the next step, the 90-day challenge. Why 90 days? Because 90 days is long enough to transform a pattern, but short enough to remain within your control. It's the perfect window for real, measurable change. Here's the challenge. The first 30 days, get used to the hour, build the habit. Forgive your mistakes, stay in motion. The next 30 days, refine the hour, strengthen your focus. Eliminate distractions that disrupt your rhythm. Deepen your commitment. The final 30 days, master the hour. Make it part of your identity. Protect it with pride. Carry it with conviction. At the end of 90 days, you won't just have results, you'll have evidence. Evidence that you are capable of consistency. Evidence that you can trust yourself. Evidence that your life responds when you respond. And once you have evidence, you don't go back. Why? Because you tasted what life feels like when you take ownership. And nothing tastes better than self-respect. And now we arrive at the end of this lesson, but just the beginning of what it can mean for your life. You see, transformation doesn't require dramatic change. It doesn't demand heroic effort. It simply requires direction followed by discipline. 1 hour a day, 4 pillars, a weekly review, a monthly reset, a 90-day commitment. That's the blueprint. Jim Rohn used to say, the major value in life is not what you get. The major value is what you become. And what you become is shaped not by chance, not by luck, not by convenience, but by the daily decisions you make about who you intend to be. So here is the invitation. Start the hour. Protect the hour. Honor the hour. Let it reshape you into the person capable of living the life you desire. And one day, not far from now, you will look back and say, everything changed when I decided to change 1 hour. That's the power of consistency. That's the gift of discipline. And that is my wish for you. A life built with intention, shaped with wisdom, and strengthened by daily effort. Because when most won't, you will.